Hey, Megan here. Just wanted to let you know this is actually part 2 of a very long series about fixing weird leaves on plants. The first one is all about terrestrial plants, so if you're looking for that, click this video here. But if you're looking for semi-hydroponics, this is the one to be in. Now let's go to the video. All right, now let's talk semi-hydroponics. This is one of the many Tradescantias. I can't remember if it's the discolor or quad or whatever. They all end up looking the same to me, so I'm really bad at those. If you're like me and you're growing some of your houseplants in semi-hydroponics, some of these weird leaf symptoms can still occur, but the underlying causes and how they manifest might have some nuances that don't work the same as soil-based plants. A quick run over. Semi-hydroponics is a method of growing plants without soil using an inert medium like LECA, which is lightweight expanded clay aggregate, to support the roots. I primarily use straight pumice, like you can see in my Alocasia heterophylla, but there are other options too, like pon, lava rock, so on. For brevity, I'm just going to say LECA, but feel free to swap that with the medium of your choice. How semi-hydroponics works is the plant draws moisture and nutrients from a reservoir at the bottom of the container. These are the double pots that I sell on Etsy. What I love about these is that they're semi-opaque, so they're pretty good at not getting algae growth, but you can also see the water levels pretty well. One of the benefits of semi-hydroponics is that the roots typically have access to both this water that has nutrients in it and air because LECA is so porous. If you're curious, full hydroponic setup is a little more complicated. It involves basically growing the plant from start in a hydro setup, and that includes having an air pump, constant nutrients, and it's just like, it's a whole thing. Semi-hydro is the best of both worlds, and it's usually easier to do, in my opinion and in my experience, than full-scale hydroponics. In a semi-hydro setup, the plant's roots grow into the LECA, which wicks moisture and nutrients up to them. And the spaces between the LECA pebbles allow for air circulation around the roots, preventing the anaerobic conditions that can lead to root rot and overwatered soil. The plant relies entirely on the nutrient system provided in the water reservoir for its nutritional needs. If you're curious, regular fertilizer, in my experience, the Jack's Classic works really well. You don't need to get a super expensive semi-hydroponic nutrient solution if you don't want to. Now, many of the weird leaf symptoms we've already discussed can still occur in semi-hydro setups, as you can see. Sorry, buddy. But the signs might sometimes point to issues within the semi-hydro system itself. You might see yellowing or drooping leaves, which indicate problems with the water or the nutrient uptake. Meanwhile, brown crispy edges could still signal low humidity or issues with the nutrient solution concentration. Pale or faded leaves might point to nutrient deficiencies or insufficient light. Spotting on leaves could still be due to fungal or bacterial issues or nutrient imbalances. And while the fundamental needs of the plant, like light and humidity, remain the same, regardless of the growing medium, there are some specific causes of weird leaf symptoms that are more relevant to semi-hydroponic setups. One common issue is maintaining incorrect reservoir levels. If the water level is too consistently high, it can submerge too much of the root system, hindering their access to oxygen and potentially leading to root rot. On the other hand, if the reservoir is allowed to run completely dry for extended periods, the plant will show signs of underwatering, just as it would in soil. Another key factor is using an imbalance or a depleted nutrient solution. If you're not using a solution specifically formulated for semi-hydroponics, or if you're not refreshing the water reservoir and nutrient load regularly, the plant can suffer from nutrient deficiencies or even toxicities, both of which can show up as unusual leaf symptoms. The pH of the nutrient system is also critical as it affects the plant's ability to absorb whatever nutrients are present. An incorrect pH can lead to deficiencies even if there are adequate nutrients in the reservoir. Over time, you might experience algae or biofilm buildup within the reservoir, and this can compete with the plant for nutrients and oxygen and can even harbor harmful microorganisms. Finally, salt buildup in LECA can occur as the minerals from the nutrient solution accumulate over time, affecting their ability to take up water. That's often why you'll see people recommend occasionally flushing LECA. When you see weird leaf symptoms on your semi-hydroponic plants, the treatment often involves checking and making adjustments to the system itself. First, ensure the reservoir levels are appropriate for your specific plant and the size of the container, typically reaching about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way up the pot, because you want to make sure that The water is accessible to the roots, but not to the point that you see water up here. Most advice says make it a regular practice to refresh the nutrient solution, but I don't add the nutrients during the winter. I haven't had a problem with that. Test it and make sure, but I feel like dormant plants don't want it. And again, I haven't, despite what this looks like, I haven't had a problem with the other 200 plus plants. They're doing okay. However, if you start to see that kind of leaf damage, then it's probably a good idea to empty the reservoir completely and refill it with a properly balanced nutrient solution. If you're super worried, get one that's designed for semi-hydroponics and always follow the instructions on the product. Also, check the pH level and adjust the nutrient solution as necessary. You can use a pH meter or test strips to ensure the water is within the optimal range for your plant. But it's also a good idea to periodically clean the reservoir to remove any potential algae or biofilm. That's especially important for ones that are transparent. For ones like this guy that are semi-opaque or fully opaque, you have less likely of a chance, not 100%, but still less likely of a chance that algae is going to mess with you. Over time, also, you might need to flush the LECA with fresh water or even replace it entirely to prevent excessive salt buildup. To flush LECA, you'll want to remove the inner pot if you're using a 2-pot system and thoroughly rinse the LECA under running water for a few minutes. If your setup doesn't have an inner pot, you can carefully hold the LECA in place while you pour water through the container, allowing the old nutrient solution and accumulated salts to drain away. This helps to refresh the medium and prevent salt buildup, which can eventually become so significant that it interferes with the root's abilities to absorb water and nutrients effectively. For this reason, and because LECA can also break down and become dusty over a long period, you might also need to replace the LECA entirely every year or so, depending on your water quality and nutrient solution. Sometimes, even with all this information, figuring out exactly what's causing those weird things on your plant's leaves can be a bit of a puzzle. So here are a few extra troubleshooting tips to help you become a crack plant detective. Observe the whole plant. Don't just zero in on one strange leaf. Take a good look at the entire plant. Are other leaves showing similar symptoms? Is the plant's overall growth looking stunted or weak? Are the stems looking healthy and firm? Get the full picture of your plant's condition because that can give you a lot more clues about what might be going on. Consider recent changes. Think back to over the last few weeks. Have you made any changes to your plant's environment or your care routine? Did you recently move it to a new spot? Did you repot it? Did you put it from soil into semi-hydroponics? Or vice versa, have you changed how often you're watering or what you're feeding it or your type of water? Did you bring a new plant friend home? Sometimes a recent change, even a seemingly small one, can be the trigger for leaf problems as the plant adjusts. Inspect closely for pests. Get up close and personal with your plant and especially pay attention to the undersides of the leaves and those little nooks and crannies where pests love to hide. If you have one, a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe can be a super helpful tool for spotting those tiny culprits like spider mites or thrips that you might otherwise miss with the naked eye. You might feel a little like a weirdo, but at least your plants will be happy. Don't panic and overreact. Seeing a weird leaf can definitely make you worry, but try not to jump to the most extreme solutions right away. When you make a small change to your plant's care, give it a few days and see if things start to improve. And that's one of the reasons I haven't cut this off, because sometimes overtreating a plant can actually cause more stress than the initial problem. Isolate affected plants. If you have more than one house plant and you suspect the issue might be pests, a contagious disease like a fungal or bacteria infection, it's a good idea to isolate the affected plant or plants away from your healthy ones. This will prevent whatever the problem is from spreading to the rest of your collection. Trust your gut and do your research. Sometimes you just have a feeling that something isn't quite right with your plant. While it might feel like a hunch, there's actual science that shows it can often be your brain processing subtle clues and patterns based on your experience with the plant or other things, obviously. Over time, you'll develop a sense for what's normal for your plants, so if something feels off, even when you can't put your finger on it, trust that. If you're not sure what's going on, don't hesitate to do a little research online using reliable sources or even reach out to a local plant expert at a nursery or a garden center. The more details you can provide about the specific symptoms you're seeing and your usual care routine, the better they're going to be able to help you figure things out. So there you have it, a comprehensive, I hope, look at decoding those weird leaves on your houseplants. Remember, those unusual shapes, colors, and textures are your plant's way of telling you that something isn't quite right. Make sure to carefully observe the symptoms and consider the potential causes that we've discussed, and that way you'll be much better equipped to figure out what's going on and take the necessary steps to help your green friends get back to their thriving best. The big things to remember are always start by checking the basics of good plant care. Think light, water, humidity, and nutrients. Then really look closely at the specific symptoms you're seeing on the leaves to narrow down what might be the issue, whether it's a problem with watering, a pest, a lack of nutrients, or some kind of stress from the environment. And don't forget to put on your detective hat and look at the entire plant and think about any changes you might have made recently. I'm Megan Brame. Thanks for watching. As always, stay curious, greenies, and don't forget to flourish.